Bai Lu switches seats to sit beside Dylan Wang. Shen Yue's reaction shocks everyone. Before you continue reading this story, pause for 1 second and hit subscribe to Kdrama Drops because what you are about to hear will shake your entire belief about Dylan Wang, Bai Lu and Shen Yue. This is not a simple seating change. It is a moment that exposes hidden tension, unspoken emotions, and a truth that fans have been whispering about for months. If you love drama twists and emotional reveals, do not leave this video. The day began like any ordinary filming day. Cameras were being set up, stylists moved around in a hurry, directors barked instructions, and the cast gathered for their promotional interview. Everything seemed calm, peaceful even, until one small unexpected action turned the entire atmosphere upside down. The chairs had been arranged in a neat row, 3 seats placed side by side. Shen Yue had naturally taken the seat next to Dylan Wang, a habit everyone had grown familiar with through the years. Their chemistry was easy, their comfort undeniable, their presence together always sending fans into excitement. The crew did not question it. The fans did not question it. It was simply the way things always were. But then Bai Lu walked in. She entered with her quiet elegance, her natural confidence, her graceful smile that charmed even the coldest hearts. She greeted everyone warmly, waving to staff members and laughing softly with the director. But the moment she saw the seating arrangement, something in her expression shifted ever so slightly, like a cloud passing over a calm sky. She paused. She looked at Dylan. Then at Shen Yue. Then back at Dylan. And with a smile so subtle that only a few noticed, she walked directly to the row of seats, placed a hand on the back of Shen Yue's chair, and said quietly but clearly, "I think I will sit here." Before anyone could process her words, Bai Lu gently but firmly switched seats, moving herself to the chair right beside Dylan Wang. It was smooth, quick, and undeniably intentional. Dylan blinked, Shen Yue froze, the crew stared, and the room fell into a stunned silence. For a moment, everything felt suspended in the air. Bai Lu sat down casually, crossing her legs, brushing her hair behind her ear, and flashing Dylan a bright smile as if nothing unusual had just happened. Dylan gave a polite nod, awkward but polite, trying to maintain professionalism. But Shen Yue's reaction told an entirely different story. Shen Yue's eyes flickered with confusion, then surprise, then something deeper. Something she did not want anyone to see. She straightened in her seat and folded her hands tightly in her lap, forcing a small smile that did not reach her eyes. The energy between the 3 shifted instantly. Fans watching the live stream felt it. Crew members standing behind the cameras felt it. Even Dylan himself felt it. The director clapped his hands and called for the interview to begin, trying to cut through the strange tension. But the sudden shift did not disappear. It simmered quietly beneath every question asked and every answer given. Bai Lu leaned closer to Dylan during the first question. Shen Yue looked away quickly. Bai Lu whispered something to Dylan during a break. Shen Yue's jaw tightened just a little. Bai Lu touched his sleeve lightly while laughing. Shen Yue blinked twice and forced another smile. Each little moment added a new spark to the fire. The chat exploded. Fans typed furiously as they noticed every detail. Was Bai Lu trying to get closer to Dylan? Was she claiming a place that did not belong to her, or was she simply unaware of the storm she had just created? What made everything more intense was Dylan's reaction. Dylan was polite, but not warm. Friendly, but distant. His eyes drifted more toward Shen Yue than Bai Lu. When Shen Yue spoke, Dylan listened with a kind of gentle attention that Bai Lu could not interrupt no matter how close she sat. And when Shen Yue smiled, a faint softness touched Dylan's expression that fans had seen too many times to ignore. But the breaking point came near the end of the interview. A staff member approached with new arrangement notes and casually mentioned that the seating order had never been assigned. Anyone could sit anywhere. Bai Lu froze for a single second, just enough for Shen Yue to notice. It was clear then. Bai Lu had not simply taken a random available seat. She had chosen that seat. The one beside Dylan. And Shen Yue realized it instantly. Shen Yue inhaled slowly, composed herself, then did something no one expected. She stood. The crew members looked up. Dylan looked up. Bai Lu looked up with a sudden spark of surprise in her eyes. Shen Yue gave a gentle smile, poised and controlled. "I need a moment," she said softly. "I will be back." She walked off the stage gracefully, but even from behind, it was clear that her emotions were swirling like a storm she was trying to hold back. Dylan stood halfway, torn between staying for the cameras and going after her. His fists clenched. His breath tightened. The conflict in his eyes was visible to everyone. Bai Lu lowered her gaze, realizing the weight of what she had caused. Her confidence did not fade, but a shadow of thought passed across her expression. Perhaps she had tested something she should not have tested. Perhaps she had stepped into a space that was not hers to occupy. What happened next stunned everyone. When Shen Yue returned a few minutes later, Dylan subtly moved back beside her. He did it naturally, without announcement, without hesitation. He simply stood up and changed seats, returning to the place he had always occupied. Right beside her. The crew stared. Bai Lu stared. Fans lost their minds. And in that tiny moment, the truth became clearer than ever before. Some connections cannot be interrupted by a seat change. Some bonds cannot be shaken by a quiet attempt. Some hearts cannot be replaced by someone sitting closer. Dylan and Shen Yue did not need words. Their energy spoke for them. Their silence spoke louder than any confession. Their connection remained unshaken. Bai Lu tried to claim a moment. But she could not claim a bond. What the world witnessed that day was not just a seating switch. It was the quiet battle of unspoken feelings. And Shen Yue's reaction revealed a depth of emotion that fans had always suspected but never fully seen. The room was still trembling with tension when part 1 ended, and every eye remained fixed on the same three people whose energy had shifted the entire atmosphere. Bai Lu sitting beside Dylan had already changed everything, but what happened next pushed the moment into something far deeper, far heavier, and far more unforgettable. Dylan tried to relax his shoulders but his eyes kept following Shen Yue, who stood completely still as if her whole world had taken one sharp turn she did not expect. Her silence carried more weight than any loud argument. It was the kind of silence that could break a person without a single word spoken. Bai Lu noticed it and tightened her grip on the edge of the seat. Even she could feel how strange the moment had become. She leaned slightly toward Dylan as if trying to appear calm, but the tension in her jaw gave her away. She knew Shen Yue was upset. Everyone knew. The director cleared his throat trying to control the room, but his voice drowned under the heavy emotion floating everywhere. He asked everyone to prepare for the next scene, but no one moved. Instead, all eyes returned to Shen Yue, who finally inhaled slowly and walked toward Dylan and Bai Lu. Her steps were steady but her emotions were anything but calm. She stopped right in front of them and for a second no one could breathe. Dylan's eyes widened the moment he realized she was fighting something inside her, something sharp enough to break her heart but strong enough to push her forward. Shen Yue lifted her chin and forced a small smile though her eyes trembled. She looked at Bai Lu first and then at the empty seat beside her former spot. And then she said it. The line that made the entire set freeze all over again. She whispered that she only stood up because she thought someone else needed the seat more than she did. A simple sentence. A gentle sentence. But one that carried a storm beneath it. One that showed she was hurt even if she tried to hide it. One that revealed everything without exposing anything. Dylan leaned forward as if he wanted to stop her from walking away again. He called her name but she did not turn. She only kept walking back to her corner like someone trying not to crumble in front of the entire world. Everyone kept watching her because she looked like she was carrying sadness she had no idea how to express. Bai Lu looked at Dylan. Dylan looked at Bai Lu. But neither of them said anything. The silence between all three of them became something no one could escape from. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Then something unexpected happened. The director suddenly asked Shen Yue and Dylan to run through a scripted argument scene together before shooting. The moment the words left his mouth, everyone knew this was going to expose everything they were all trying so hard to hide. Shen Yue walked toward Dylan again, but this time she forced herself to appear professional. Dylan stood up slowly and faced her. Their scripted argument began, but something was different. Every word they exchanged sounded too real. Too emotional. Too sharp. Too honest. People watching whispered that they were not acting anymore. They were speaking from a place deeper than the script. Deeper than the rehearsal. Deeper than the set. Shen Yue delivered the final line with a trembling voice, saying she was tired of pretending she was fine. The room stopped again. Even the director lowered his hand because he felt the weight of those words. Dylan stared at her as if he had been waiting to hear that for a long time. He stepped closer and lowered his voice so only she could hear him. He whispered that she did not have to pretend with him. The sound of those words shook her. She blinked fast to hold back her tears and nodded slowly before stepping away. Bai Lu watched all of it. Her eyes shifted from Dylan to Shen Yue and back again. She understood something in that moment. Something she had been denying. Something she could now see clearly. The scene ended, but the tension did not. Shen Yue left the set quietly. Dylan followed her almost immediately. And Bai Lu sat alone with her thoughts as the whispers around the room spread like wildfire. Outside the hallway, Dylan finally caught up with Shen Yue. She stopped walking but kept her back to him. He stood behind her silently for a long moment before he finally spoke. He told her that she mattered to him more than any seat or any scene or any moment on set. He said she should never feel pushed aside because she was never someone he could push aside even if he tried. She turned around slowly, and for the first time that day she met his eyes without fear. Then she said something soft. Something gentle. Something true. She admitted that seeing Bai Lu beside him hurt her more than she expected. She said she did not even know why it felt that way, but it did. It always did. Dylan closed his eyes for a second, like someone trying to choose his next words carefully. When he opened them, he stepped closer and whispered the only sentence that could end the entire storm with peace. He said he chose her a long time ago, and nothing about today had changed that. Her eyes softened. Her breath slowed. And for the first time since morning, the tension around her faded. He reached out his hand slowly. She hesitated but took it. Together they returned to the set. Together they sat. Together they continued the day. And the whispers never stopped. Because everyone knew they had just witnessed a moment that was never supposed to be seen. A moment that explained everything. A moment that changed everything. And that was how the day ended. Not with chaos. Not with anger. But with a silent understanding that spoke louder than anything else.